All right, I believe we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Trading the Markets. I am your host, Tone Vays, coming to you live as the markets have just opened on this Monday. Now, this is our last week of February. I can't believe how fast February has gone by. We only have 2 days left here in February. All right, but I do want to join the Swan Spaces at the top of the hour. I really like their Friday spaces and Monday, to kick off the week. Hopefully the audio is good. Everything is good. And here comes screen share. Maybe I should put more memory into my laptop. No, I'm going to close some tabs. I'm catching up on some old reading. All right, screen share. Here we go. We're going to begin with the most important chart in one of my 100 tabs, once Zoom cooperates with me. Come on. There we go. Okay. And our most important chart is the S&P 500. It doesn't have to be the S&P 500. It could be the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones. I just happen to pay more attention to the S&P. You can see all of our crazy annotations. The Arun has indicated a bullish trade, barely. I like this crossover at 25% or under, but it did cross over at around 27%. Not ideal, but very, very close to a reasonable area. The other metrics are clean. The S&P 500 on a weekly level is sitting right at support. Today's weekly candle has not yet popped up, or maybe it has. Oh, no, it has. I didn't see it there. It did. It was blocked by a moving average. I thought it was on a little bit of a delay, but it is already there. You can see how it's starting off as a type of candle known as a bullish harami. That is a candle inside. That's a bullish candle inside a prior very heavy bearish candle. Okay, so let's look at the daily chart. I've said it a couple of times in the last few streams. The S&P 500 on a daily scale is at very, very critical support. You have double support right here with the MRI support line and the rising moving average. Also notice there was a weekly and a monthly MRI turning points back in October. If we go back to the weekly chart, we had a weekly MRI buy inside a monthly MRI buy. I would have discussed this back in October that this should be the low, not only for the last few years, but also for the next few years to come. I am expecting the stock market to rally to a new all-time high off of these lows, and I stated such back in October in real time as it was happening. In fact, I was talking about it back in September, that I anticipated October to be the monster reversal in the markets. But this is the biggest test. This is the biggest test we have right now for the markets. Of course, anything can happen. World War III could break out. If, crazy people in governments aren't careful. And so anything can happen and crash the market. But just because a major war breaks out doesn't mean that the stock market is going to crash. Government bonds will crash, and people may run to the safety of private stocks. Of course, unless the government takes away your money from private stocks and doesn't, confiscates it, which is why Bitcoin is the first unconfiscatable asset in human history. And to learn more about that, join us at the Unconfiscatable Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, this December 7 and 8, with a poker tournament taking place on December 6th. If you're more financially inclined, come and join us at the Financial Summit. This event will take place November 5th in one of the countries that has the most financial freedom in the world, and that is the UAE. UAE really believes in financial freedom, and that is why lots of financial events are happening in the UAE. Okay, back to Bitcoin. So the stock market will drive Bitcoin this week. I've been saying that for a little while now, especially the last few weeks. And today is a really, really good day. If the stock market can rally, man, the moment the stock market breaks this MRI resistance line of 4,160, you will see Bitcoin breaking 30K. That's pretty much the equivalent. Okay, let's now go straight to the Bitcoin chart. Take a look at the weekly. We are sitting right at very critical resistance. The weekly metrics look good. The RSI looks bullish. The MACD looks very bullish. And the CMF looks very bullish as well. Metrics look great. Now, what about the price action? Well, here's what we have to decide. To me, this is a complete no trade zone until we either break above 25K or drop below 22K, in which case we should find very good support in the $20,000 area. That's our weekly chart. There's absolutely, if you're DCAing, you're fine. But if you're actually trying to time the market with some trades, I would be very cautious right now because it can still go either way. I become bullish above 25 and buying the dip below 20 to between 20 and 22. Well, it says on my cup right there, buy the dip. 4-day allocation chart is exactly the same. I will absolutely add to my bullish position if next candle is sitting above $24,000. That would be in the middle of the week. We still have, 2 days to go in this candle, though this candle might actually reset at the end of the month. We will see. But sometime around the 1st or 2nd, if we are sitting at 24,000, I would be so bullish, I may double this position and go right into an 80% allocation. Because I will be playing the breakout. And all the moving averages will be clean. And I'll catch it in the beginning within consolidation. Daily chart. Someone has called me a Ukraine hater. I love Ukraine. I've gone to Ukraine a dozen times. I'm a Zelensky hater, but I'm not a Ukraine hater. I love Ukraine. I like the people in Ukraine that are not involved in government or the military of Ukraine. I like the Ukrainian people. When they're not affiliated with the government. But it's the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian military that is getting a lot of my friends and the Ukrainian people killed, and they've been completely brainwashed by the Western media, and here we are. My plan was to spend the summer of 2020 in Ukraine. That was my plan. But I also don't think there'll be a Ukraine going forward, so we'll see what happens. Which is too bad. Daily chart. I was kind of hoping that we would touch this moving average one more time. I really want us to see us hit 22,000 without going under. That was what I was hoping for. I didn't get it again. We can still get it, but I would be ecstatic to see price of Bitcoin break 25K. 25K is my, it's got to be 24.5. Let's split the middle here. This to me is very close to a double top. So if we get sufficiently close to right there, to the high of February, if we get to 24.5, I would consider that very, very bullish, and I would add to my bullish allocation there. Or we fall down in the between 22 and 20, and that would be my buy the dip. So I have a breakout buy set and a buy the dip set. But for buy the dip, I need to see it turn, kind of like what happened with natural gas, right? Natural gas gave you a beautiful MRI buying opportunity, but the way the candle closed was weak. That's why the following candle didn't start off very good, but then it reversed. So somewhere at the end of this weekly candle, that's when I said, hey, natural gas is reversing here. And here we are. So natural gas right now, I am very bullish on natural gas, which brings us to oil. And I can't wait for numbers later this week to see how much oil from the reserve the Biden administration have siphoned. And next month, oil hits a very critical weekly MRI buy. So once again, oil will be doing what I expect oil to be doing what natural gas is doing. Had a few days of a delay here on the reversal, but pretty damn good timing. All right, we're talking about the daily chart. Now let's move on to the hourly chart. The hourly chart, early morning on Saturday, there was an hourly MRI buy, very similar to 11 a.m. on Wednesday, 22nd, this Saturday? Yeah, Saturday 25th, Wednesday 22nd. So on Wednesday 22nd, we reversed for 1 to 4 candles, and then the original trend set in. This time around, we reversed for more than 4 candles, and we kept going into an MRI sell. So it's a 4-hour chart, not 1-hour chart, into a 4-hour sell late last night. That led to 1 to 4 candle correction, and now we're continuing the trend. This is a very bullish 4-hour trend, very, very bullish. What about the 1-hour chart? Guys, why is this becoming so political this morning? Yes, many, many countries have Nazis in them. The problem with Ukraine is that the percentage of the Nazis in Ukraine is sufficiently larger towards their overall population than in other countries, than in their neighbors, or even in the United States. Motorist, yeah, that's one reason. No, it's still his fault though. You have other options. You can resign, you can hire different people. You also didn't have to take all those bribes. Let's just say he didn't try very hard. Let's just say Zelensky didn't try at all to create peace. Tried for about 2 weeks and then said, cool, I'm on this train. Let me get that FTX money. What do you call Nazis? People with a swastika tattooed on them. I didn't know that was debatable. Okay. Guys, Ukraine having Nazis is not debatable. I knew this like 8 years ago. Not 8 years ago. I wasn't there 8 years ago. When I started going to Ukraine in like 2016, 2017, I was very well informed about the Nazi situation in Ukraine. I was advised not to go to the west of Ukraine. Like I knew this long before this conflict started. Like, it's been a problem there. If you look at like documentaries from Vays and others from like 2012, 2013, 2014, it's well documented. Like this was like before 2016, 17, it was very well documented, but then the media angle changed. And I was advised not to go to the west of Ukraine by Ukrainians while in Ukraine. They were like, Tone, you don't want to go to the west by yourself. You got to go there with some locals. GBTC, not doing much this morning. That's why I've never been to the west of Ukraine. I haven't been to the east of Ukraine either because there was a war going on there since 2014. So I've only been to the north and the south of Ukraine. And I drove from one side to the other. Yeah, I've been to Ukraine a dozen times. So unless someone is in here has been to Ukraine more than me, I think I have a slightly better perspective. What was the reason not to go to the West? The reason not to go to the West was because their hatred of both Russians and Jews. That was the reason that was given to me not to go to the West. If I'm hanging out by myself in the wrong bar, I can have a problem. And I'm half Ukrainian, by the way. I'm 50% Ukrainian. The news about biolabs in Ukraine is a year old. I mean, I knew about the biolabs in Ukraine. Russia went after those fairly quickly. So, yeah, the United States was creating all kinds of viruses there. Gold is still on its projected downward path, as the arrow indicates. We will see what happens when we reach a reasonable support level. And back to the S&P 500. Warrior, that's a great question. Don't you think Russia would have been better off just giving out Russian passports and winning through its supposedly soft power to get Ukraine in its pocket? That's the thing. They tried. Russia tried to do that for a decade, and they failed. They failed in doing that, right? So Ukraine had Russian leading leaders, Yanukovych, and another one. I'm not saying Yanukovych was a saint. Yanukovych was, look, you got to start from the base, right? At the base level, Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe, possibly in the world, with the exception of a few African nations. Okay. Now, from that baseline, you had the prior two Ukrainian presidents before the revolution before the U.S. orchestrated color revolution in 2013, December 2013, or let's say 2014. Let's round, right? So prior to that revolution, Ukraine has had Russian-leaning leaders that were democratically elected, fairly democratically elected, because the Russians in the East wanted some representation, because there was a lot of Russian-leaning people living in the east of Ukraine. They wanted to maintain the Russian language, and they wanted to, not to get killed. So a pro-Russian leader has always been elected in Ukraine until, another U.S. sanctioned coup took place in December 2013. That stretched into January 2014. Then the U.S. elected its puppet president, and then then obviously the U.S. then pushed and once again elected. I don't know how fair that second election was, to elect eventually Zelensky. Okay, so and then Russia couldn't even do what you suggested, because at that point, they started banning the Russian language. They started banning anything Russian, even though people in the East considered themselves more Russian. That's why Donbass wanted to break off. They didn't want to be part of Ukraine anymore if they're not allowed to, if their vote doesn't count. So there you go. So Russia tried to do what you suggested, but they failed. Because Russia is not very good at propaganda. That's U.S. is a master. And the U.S. is such a master at propaganda that they have convinced the world that Russia is the propagandist. That's how miserably Russia failed at propaganda. Russia basically is blamed for propaganda that they didn't even do. That's how bad they are at it. I can somewhat understand Ukrainian, but no, I never learned Ukrainian, no. Will BRICS use Bitcoin? I mean, they don't want to. They want to create their own currency. See, here's the problem, right? It's not that I know more about Ukrainian politics than Ukrainians, right? But there is no, like, what is a Ukrainian? A Ukrainian from the East is very different than a Ukrainian from the West. It's like saying Dominican Republic and Haiti, they're on the same island. 2/3 of that island is Dominican Republic, and the other 1/3 of that island is Haiti. So it's like saying that, I mean, like, the differences are that drastic. Like, it is a civil war within Ukraine. So the Ukrainians in the East are very different than Ukrainians in the West. So if you ask a Ukrainian from the West, you're going to have a very different view on Ukrainian politics than a Ukrainian from the East. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Zelensky barely knew Ukrainian. Guys, you have no idea how many Ukrainians don't know Ukrainian. That's because a big chunk of Ukraine should have never been Ukraine. It should have been Russia after in 1991. That's the problem. That's basically the problem. I'll grab an image for you. Hold on. Here, I was looking for this chart. See if I can just throw it here. This is the problem. Will it work? This chart here. Okay, this is the problem. These areas right here, maybe not Odessa, but maybe. That's the maybe. But all of this, everything in red, should have never been allocated to Ukraine region in the 1950s. See, when a Ukrainian, well, at the time, okay, so Nikola Khrushchev is from here, either from Lugansk or from the next. Nikola Khrushchev was the president of the Soviet Union in the 1950s after Stalin. And he assigned these regions, including Crimea, he assigned them to the region of Ukraine. Why did he assign them to Ukraine? I don't know. You have to get a time machine, learn Russian, because he didn't speak Ukrainian, learn Russian, and go and ask Nikola Khrushchev why he assigned all these regions, including Crimea, to be managed by Ukraine. The simplest answer is they thought that Soviet Union would never collapse. When the Soviet Union collapsed, you had all these Russians living here that were now managed by Ukraine. And it became the country of Ukraine. These areas should have never been assigned to Ukraine in the 1950s. They should have remained with Russia. And when Ukraine became its own country for the first time ever, basically, in 1991, too many Russians ended up in the Ukrainian border. And now here we are. Had these regions, had this area, everything east of the river, had this area, again, Odessa would be debatable, but you can see the more orange it is, the more Russian ethnic people it has. Like, Russian is the dominant language in Odessa, not Ukrainian. Over here, it's Ukrainian. Over here, no one speaks Ukrainian. See how red it is. No one speaks Ukrainian here. Okay. These people see themselves as Russian, hence the disaster that we're in. If Nikola Khrushchev in the 1950s never allocated this region to Ukraine, this probably could have been avoided today. There were other reasons that could have avoided it, but this is probably the biggest one. So when a democratically elected president was overthrown in a US assisted coup, these people, the dark areas, this one is a little trickier. But this right here, these guys no longer wanted to be part of Ukraine. They either wanted to be independent or they wanted to join Russia for protection because they were afraid that there would be a genocide here now that their views are no longer represented. And this side really hates this side. So here we are. So there's been a civil war going on since 2014, and eventually Putin sent in the tanks. Ukraine was historically harassed from Moscow, Stalin. I agree with you. Great. Where is Stalin from? Stalin's from Georgia. So why didn't Ukraine blame Georgia for its starvation? Why do they blame Russia? Stalin is not Russian. Stalin was Georgian. Go blame Georgia. Go blame that ethnicity. Yeah, Kiev was the center of Russia until the Mongols came and destroyed it. So Russians moved further north, and then 100 years later built Moscow as a stronghold that the Mongols could not take. And neither could Hitler and neither could Napoleon. And neither will NATO. Guys, you have to understand it from the Russian point of view. From the Russian point of view, Mongols came in the 1200s and destroyed their capital. So they built a stronger capital further north in a more colder region that is better to defend. Then Napoleon tries to take over Russia and they, defeat him. Russia didn't, attack Europe. Napoleon did. Then Hitler tried it, failed as well. And now from the Russian perspective, well, we defeated Napoleon when he tried to surround our country. We defeated Hitler when he tried to surround our country. And now we're going to defeat NATO when they try to surround our country. That's their perspective. Now, I personally don't think Russia wants Kiev. They don't want to manage Kiev. They have enough of their own shit to manage. They also don't really want to destroy Kiev because of the history. At least Putin doesn't. I think people around Putin would love to just destroy Kiev and wipe it off the face of the earth. But I don't think Putin does because of its history of where Russia originated. So Kiev may or may not be spared. We'll find out eventually, But I do think he's going to take everything west of Kiev and everything south, including Odessa. I think they'll take it. I think they'll take all these regions. So basically, everything below this red line, maybe this area, maybe. and maybe this area in orange. Maybe. But I do think they're going to take these areas, Sumy and Chernihiv. I can't pronounce that. Chernihiv. And all of these areas in red. I'm pretty confident Russia's going to take those. And Russia lost the propaganda war. When they lost the propaganda war, they had to, do it by force. If Russia was able to, have a Ukrainian president that was more pro-Russia than pro-US, then this also could have been avoided. But 2014 had something to say about that. Back to the charts. Yeah, Bitcoin's looking nice today. Again, S&P 500. All you got to do is look at the S&P 500. You can see that we have recovered all of Friday's losses in the S&P 500, and Bitcoin is rallying. It's the S&P 500 that you need to watch. It will tell you exactly where Bitcoin's going to go. Now that the FTX contagion has been, it's kind of in the back of our minds. By the way, the Russian-Kazakhstan border screwed up in the opposite direction, right? So the opposite thing happened. I don't have a Google map open, but let me see if I can get a world map open. I guess I can just go to Google Maps. So the Kazakhstan border is screwed up in the opposite direction. So a bunch of land that really should belong to Kazakhstan is Russia. But Kazakhstan doesn't have the capability of taking that land back. Kind of like in the United States, a bunch of this land is Mexico, but Mexico doesn't exactly have the ability to go get that land back. But I tell you what, if there was a shit ton of Americans, if it was the other way around, and there was a lot of Americans, on the border in Mexico, and the Mexican government was oppressing those people and bombing those people, the U.S. will sure hell go and take that land back and make it U.S. It's just it can't do it the other way. Like if the U.S. starts, oppressing and killing Mexicans on the other side of the border, Mexico doesn't have the military or the global, connections to go and get that land back. So this is why Kazakhstan can't take their land back. Like there's lots of land here that really should have been Kazakhstan, but Kazakhstan is not able to go and get it. But Ukraine is the opposite. Like a lot of this land, and based on the people that live there, is really Russia. And Russia does have the capability of getting it back, unless Ukraine would have, abided by the Minsk agreement and let these areas go. And that could have been avoided. And by the way, if there's a lot of Russians in Estonia, Latvia, well, not so much Lithuania, but there's a lot of Russians in Estonia and Latvia, maybe not now, but if there were, and these countries were, oppressing and like killing Russians in that area, Russia will go and get that land also. Because again, Russia can take these countries because Russia's bigger. Kazakhstan can't take land back from Russia. Same thing, US, Mexico. Same concept. What do I think about Finland? I think their leadership is Marxist and stupid. Like there are some smart. Well, yeah, I guess that's a contradiction. I think Finland's leadership can potentially get the Finnish people killed. I think they should be smarter. When you are bordering a country like Russia, it's best to be friends with them than to be their enemy. Because the best you can do for your people if you become an enemy of Russia is to get your people killed here and now. I love their argument. Well, if we're friends with Russia, our people are going to get killed in 100 years. Right, but if you're enemies of Russia, your people are going to get killed right now. So if Finland does something stupid, there'll be no more Finland. So I think them joining NATO is a giant mistake. Giant mistake. That was Ukraine, right? I mean, did you guys, there was this interview, it was during the election. It was like in 2017, was it? When Zelensky was running for office. A reporter asked one of Zelensky's advisors, well, how is the conflict between Ukraine and Russia? And the advisor goes, well, there's probably going to be a war with Russia. This is in 2017. And she asked him, well, what are you doing to avoid this war? And the Zelensky advisor says, well, nothing. We'd rather have a war sooner than later. That's literally the interview. It's incredible. I gotta find that interview. I probably have it bookmarked somewhere. Yeah, here it is. Here's the interview. Here's the interview. Here, the translation is accurate. The translation is accurate. Hold on. It's in Russian, by the way. It's not in Ukrainian. This is Zelensky's one of Zelensky's top advisors during the election. I think it's from 2017. We can check the date, but just the translation is accurate. I've heard this a bunch of times.
в инфраструктурном отношении, здесь все разваленную территорию, для того, чтобы нас не охотно. То есть Россия сможет пойти на прямую конфронтацию с НАТО? Конечно, Россия не НАТО. Они должны это сделать до того, как мы вступим в НАТО, чтобы мы не были интересны НАТО.
Right, he's basically saying Russia has to attack Ukraine and destroy it before Ukraine joins NATO. I mean, he's right.
Перестали быть интересны, как разваленная территория. С вероятностью 99,9%.
Right. He says there's a 99.9% chance that if we are going to join NATO, Russia will like go to war with us. Oh, what happened to the audio? What the hell? Twitter has been messed up. Where's the audio? It's gone again. Right, it's going to be a Russian. This interview is like 5 years old. Right, so he says it's better to go to war with Russia now than later. Like he says, of course, a big war with Russia is better. Like literally, he says that. This is Zelensky's advisor. And they actually thought they could win a war with Russia. I mean, that's how brainwashed the US like convinced them that Ukraine can win a war against Russia. And here you are. Here you are. He literally explained it all, that if Ukraine goes to NATO, Russia will absolutely attack. So the reporter says, so why are you joining NATO? Why? 2019 interview. There it is. Sorry, I thought it was 2017. Here's the YouTube video. I wonder if it's still up. Let's see. Hey, it's still up. It's in here somewhere. It's the full interview. This is Zelensky's advisor saying, anyway, he explained it right there. So Ukraine pushed for NATO, Russia attacked, and there you go. And he explains that that's exactly what Russia would do if they keep pushing for NATO. And then he says, yes, now let's vote for Zelensky so we can push for NATO. I mean, what else can you say? Like, it was total stupidity. And he says, and she says, well, what happens if you don't join NATO? And he says, well, then in 10 to 12 years, Russia will still come and take us, right? Like, okay, but that's in 10 to 12 years, not 3 years. And how do you know that Russia will still come in and take and try to bomb Ukraine if you're not in NATO? If you're saying there is a 99.9% chance that they will come in if you do join NATO, he's saying that they're going to do it anyway in 10 to 12 years. But like, what's the reason? Like, it's just insane. So it's the craziest interview I've ever heard. I consider myself pro-peace. I don't have allegiances to specific countries, just like I don't have allegiances to specific sport teams. I kind of favor Florida State because I went to Florida State, but other than that, I don't have my brain doesn't let me be brainwashed by color of a uniform. I'm not pro-Russia. I'm not pro-America. I live in Panama. I'm not pro-Panama. I don't blind myself to the color of a uniform. I don't die hard root for a sports team. There's people that I like, there's people that I don't like. Not uniform colors. Yeah, I'm pro-Trump. Yeah, like I said, I'm pro certain people and I'm against certain people. Well, I didn't say I was pro-Russia getting that land back. I just said Russia is getting that land back, and I explained why. I wish Khrushchev never allocated this land to Ukraine, and then Russia would not be using it as a reason to take the land back. And these people, these Russian people that got stuck on the wrong side of the border would not have been oppressed by the Ukrainian regime after 2014. After the coup, after the overthrow. I'm half Ukrainian, but I don't want to say where in Ukraine that half is from. The other half is on the other side of the border. Chances to go nuclear, high, but you have to understand that, like, nuclear bombs these days, it's not like everyone's going to be dying of radiation, right? They're a lot more, let's just say, efficient now. So a nuclear, just think of nuclear bombs as just a big bomb. The radiation effect is not going to be huge, but it can, wipe Kiev off the face of the earth. But the radiation fallout from that would be very, very tiny and limited to, the region of Kiev. So it's not like just think of it as a big bomb. That's all. Like when people say nuclear bomb, they think of, a nuke gets fired and then suddenly, for thousands of kilometers, people are dying from radiation poisoning. I don't think so. I'm not an expert at this. It's just basically a big bomb. But the bombs are big enough to like wipe out New York, Washington, D.C., like Moscow. I mean, they're big enough to just wipe out these giant cities. But I don't think that it would spread, like nuclear meltdown radiation where your face is melting off like throughout the world. Like I don't think that would happen. I just see it as a big explosion. So let's just say like people would die from fire, not from radiation. All right, guys, I want to join Twitter Spaces and talk about not this stuff. This chat just started off on this from the beginning. It is important for your finances, right? Like if you don't understand what is happening in Russia, Ukraine, and how it can spread to Europe, then you are not going to be able to properly allocate your savings and your money. No, but that's what I'm saying. It won't be like Chernobyl at all. Like Chernobyl was a radiation fallout. What I'm saying is, and again, I'm not an expert at all, is that even though we refer to something as a nuclear bomb and there is a nuclear reaction involved, the radiation from that nuclear reaction is almost non-existent. So it will be nothing like Chernobyl. Like Chernobyl was a small explosion with a lot of radiation. This would be a large explosion with very little radiation. So it's the opposite of Chernobyl. Have I ever taken martial arts? Yes, I have. I used to do judo when I was a kid. I've been to Chernobyl, by the way, like 2017, I think, or 18. USD ILS. What's ILS? Is that the Israeli shekel? Or Lebanese, yeah, Israeli shekel, yeah. Uh-oh, Israel's in trouble. Currency's not doing well. So what does it mean when the currency is devaluing against the US dollar? Right, the Tsar bomb, which they actually had to shrink in size. The Tsar bomb was originally 100 megaton. It's a nuclear bomb with an additional hydrogen reaction. And they didn't even the Russians were scared that the bomb was too big. And like they didn't want to blow the earth off course or something around the sun. Whatever reason, they cut the size of that bomb in half to 50 or 58 megatons, I think. Yeah, and that's just like a giant bomb. And while there was a little bit, while there was some radiation from that reaction, the radiation damage from that bomb, the biggest bomb in the world, is probably still smaller than the Chernobyl radiation exposure, right? Because there's just very little actual radiation. Like it's not the radiation that's gonna that kills people in one of these bombs. It's the fire and the bomb part itself. So when your currency starts devaluing against the dollar, it means that people are losing confidence in your country, basically, economics, politics, everything. So the concern that Israel has, and by the way, Israel is not even on the side of Ukraine, by the way. Israel needs to maintain very good relations with Russia. This is the geopolitics taking hold, right? Israel is stuck right here in the middle of countries that really don't like them, especially this one, Iran, okay? So now that Israel just bombed an Iranian facility a few months ago because Israel is afraid Iran is going to build a nuclear bomb, just like North Korea. By the way, why did North Korea reinstate their nuclear program for a nuclear bomb? Because they watched America go into Iraq and destroy it, and Afghanistan and other countries. And then they destroyed other countries by economic means, or they went into Libya and destroyed them as well. So Kim Jong-un, whichever the dad was, he said, screw that, while the US is stuck over destroying Middle Eastern countries that agreed not to have nuclear weapons. We're going to create ours to make sure the US doesn't come and do that to us. So North Korea actually succeeded in protecting themselves, and Iran is almost there. Iran has almost, they're almost at the capability of a nuke to protect themselves, but Russia will protect Iran. So at this point, Iran is somewhat safe. Now, Israel has a problem. Israel needs to, of course, well, it's debatable who's the master here, Israel versus US. Some say Israel controls US, others say US controls Israel. Doesn't matter, they're good friends. But Israel needs to be really careful not to piss off Russia, because Israel sees the writing on the wall. Israel sees that the United States cannot fight Russia and China and Iran and North Korea at the same time. So Israel is playing the role of India, where Pakistan is being supported by the US for multiple reasons. So every now and then, India and Pakistan go at it, both nuclear-armed countries, by the way. And Israel and Iran go at it for the same way. But Israel is completely neutral on Ukraine. No one hears a peep from Israel and Ukraine. Zelensky keeps going there because he remembered that he was Jewish recently because he needs money, and trying to get money out of Israel. And Israel is not helping him, like, at all. Because Israel wants to play nice with Russia so that Russia makes sure that, like, whenever Iran finally gets their full weapon capabilities, they don't blow Israel off the face of the earth. So this peace deal needs to be somehow brokered. Meanwhile, everyone thinks Iran and Saudi Arabia are gonna go to war with each other because of the Shiite Muslim divide. I think they're wrong. This is my controversial opinion, that Iran and Saudi Arabia are a lot closer to uniting and striking a peace deal. Uniting might be a little strong of a term. I think Iran and Saudi Arabia are a lot closer to a peace deal than they are to a war with each other, because they both don't like the United States, and they have and they're both on good terms with Russia, and they're both on good terms with China. So Russia and China will make sure that Iran and Saudi Arabia make peace and not war. Now, I can't say the same thing about Iran and Israel. Now, if Israel continues to be in bed with the US will be more than happy to create a proxy war between Israel and Iran. But if Israel gets in bed with Russia, Russia is way more incentivized to broker peace between Iran and Israel. And now you have a situation where Israel is staying the hell away from the Ukraine situation in order to stay friends with Russia, in order to prevent a giant war between Iran and Israel. Though I really don't think it will be that. I mean, Israel has nuclear weapons as well, right? And Iran will as well. It's only a matter of time. And that's US's fault, by the way. It's not Iran's fault that they're going to have nuclear weapons. It's the US's fault because they had to go and destroy Iraq and Syria and Libya and every country that, just like Iran, signed a deal that says we're not going to be building nuclear weapons. So the US went and started destroying those countries one by one, and North Korea and Iran said, no, we're going to try to defend ourselves so you don't come and do that to us. But Iran has more like powerful friends like Russia right now. This stuff is really important. Tone, do you typically wait for a candle print? Hey, when you get back to trading, or will you enter early? I don't like entering early. I'd rather be sure than early. I try to wait for a print. Right. And if anyone is angry that China and or Russia helped North Korea get nukes, we can reverse the situation and say, well, how come no one is blaming the United States for giving Pakistan nukes? And by the way, Pakistan was hiding bin Laden. So let's not go into the conspiracy theories whether bin Laden existed or not. I am keeping an eye on the halving, guys. We had a difficulty adjustment, and already we are fasted in 10 minutes. So I really think this halving is going to take place early March, super early March. South Korea doesn't have nukes. Guys, come on. Come on. I know everyone is always upset about my me not knowing geopolitics, and I do get a lot of shit wrong. But South Korea does not have nukes. South Korea depends on the United States to protect them. And again, South Korea is seeing the stupidity that the United States is doing in Ukraine. And they're like, there may not be a United States left to protect us. So South Korea may be very interested in getting nukes. But what's the point? Seoul is right here. Like Seoul would be destroyed in 30 seconds. Like they can't stop it, right? If North Korea wanted to turn this city into a graveyard, they can do it in 30 seconds. Look how close they are to the border. So what's the point of South Korea having nukes? Like it doesn't matter. It makes no sense. It doesn't matter. It'll do nothing for them. No, well, that's the thing. Like, I'm sure there are nukes in South Korea, but they're American. They're on American bases. They're controlled by Americans. They're not controlled by the South Koreans. Like South Korean president does not have launch codes because South Korea does not have their own nuclear weapons. Again, I could be wrong here, but that's my understanding. All right. And by the way, North Korea now has the capabilities to send a rocket and hit the west coast of the US. Now, based on the size of that rocket, and it's not exactly a hypersonic version, it's very likely that the US can shut a lot of them down. But I have very little confidence in the United States', let's just say, competency, especially based on the people they've elected and based on the people they've promoted through the military ranks. So while the US has the technology to probably shoot down all of North Koreans' intercontinental ballistic giant nuclear missiles, I have very low confidence that the United States will actually use that technology properly to actually get that job done in shooting them down. So it's like idiocracy, right? It's like the guy goes to push a button, but then he's in order to send counter missiles, but then he sees a TikTok video and starts watching that instead. So that's kind of how much competency I have in the United States actually stopping one of these missiles from coming in. All right, on this note, I'm going to get going. Can't believe we spent an entire hour talking about this. Let's look at the price. Oh, there goes the price. Whoa. See, this is why I wait for the candle to close. I bet you the S&P just tanked a little. Yep, S&P drops and Bitcoin drops. Watch the S&P, guys. The stock market will tell you everything you need to know about Bitcoin for now. Eventually, it will decouple as the halving draws near. That's the problem. The only person that cared about peace, the only president that cared about peace in the last 50 years, well, Nixon, right? I mean, Nixon did stop the war in Vietnam. So since Nixon, who stopped the war in Vietnam, the only president has been I almost said Obama. Oh, God, Trump. I don't know which other president in between. I mean, even Reagan bombed a lot of countries. Nixon gets a bad rap. He wasn't that bad of a president. He did take the United States off the gold standard, but he had no choice. Every president would have done that. He had no choice. Trump was the only anti-war president. That's it. Only one. Kim just made it a crime for North Korean kids to dance 5 years in prison. I mean, I'm not surprised if that's true. But why is North Korea like this? Because they were isolated for how many decades now? Instead of trying to make relations. They were isolated. They should have, hired Dennis Rodman for the last 20 years to build good relations with North Korea. All right, guys. I'm going to call it a day. Yeah, I do need to spend more time in Mexico. No, but he shut a lot of them down. That's the thing. I think Trump realized that the president doesn't have as much power as he thought. But he did way more good than bad. Brokered peace between UAE and Israel. Not that they were ever at war, but created good relations in the Middle East at a minimum. So imagine if Alaska was still Russia. Imagine if Russia never sold Alaska to the United States in the 1800s. Well, when did Alaska get sold? What year? When did Russia sell Alaska? 1867. In 1867, Alaska was sold by Russia to the United States. Imagine if that never happened. If there's like a parallel world where Russia never sold Alaska to the United States. And now Canada would be stuck between Russia and the United States. Like just picture this world where all the people over here, South Canada, it is all the major cities. They're all, Americanized, and they all want to be Americans, or, whatever. But whatever people live here, right, like British Columbia, let's say, that live close to the Russian border, all of these people are super pro-Russian. They speak Russian, super pro-Russia. And then the people here in Vancouver, they're kind of split. It's like 50-50. So Canada could potentially have been, like Ukraine right now. And now there's a war taking place on the US, like close to home here, to the US. And you're in a situation where now there's nuclear missiles like right here, like right at the edge of Alaska, like right on this island. And then there's like a war going on over this island, whether that's Russia or whether that's Canada. Suddenly, this is super close to home. That's how close we could have been right now. Maybe then more peace talk would be happening. Because like, oh shit, this is real now, right? It's not real for the US because it takes place on the other side of the world. All right, guys. Talk to you all on the next one.